Hello, and welcome to my first video ever. I have no proper way of introducing myself here, so I like to make reviews, and I like to make art, and I don't want to waste any of your time, so let's get right to it. Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX is a game that came out of nowhere, a remake to the first entry of the spin-off series Red and Blue Rescue Team. Now, I'll say I'm more of a veteran to the series. I've played each installment, including the Japanese WiiWare ones, but what is Pokémon Mystery Dungeon DX? Is it worth trying out this dungeon crawler take on the beloved franchise? Well, let's go over that, shall we? Rescue Team DX was announced on January 9th, 2020, part of Pokemon's January Direct. It was released on March 6th, 2 months later. Maybe this is just me, but it always feels weird when a AAA title comes out with such a short time frame. This announcement, though, came quite as a shock to me personally, as the last entry was Super Mystery Dungeon for the 3DS back in 2015. Since Gen 3, there has been a new entry for each of the Pokemon's generations. That was until Gen 7 with Pokemon Sun and Moon, where there was no Mystery Dungeon tie-in. For a while, it was speculated that the spin-off was dead. However, that isn't the case, and this video exists because of it. Mystery Dungeon was developed by Spike Chunsoft, who developed every game in the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, the original Mystery Dungeon series, the first few Dragon Quest games, the Zero Escape series, and a handful of other titles. As mentioned, this is a remake or a definitive edition of the original releases. The original games came out on September 18, 2006 in North America. This was around the time when Nintendo was transitioning from the Game Boy Advance to the Nintendo DS, so we ended up getting Red Rescue Team on the GBA with the Blue Rescue Team on the DS. Both games are basically the same, but with only 5 exclusive Pokemon each. Though, with the dual screens, I feel Blue Rescue Team is probably the superior version of the two. Also, I love that the box art of Rescue Team DX contains both of the original game's art. The Pokemons featured were all up to Gen 3, however, Bonsly, Munchlax, Weavile, Mime Jr., and Lucario all did make a cameo appearance before getting to the core series with Diamond and Pearl. Pokemon has had numerous spin-offs throughout its past 20 years. However, there is something special about Mystery Dungeon. Mystery Dungeon, along with Pokemon Rumble, have been the most consistent spin-off series since their launch to this day. The game launches with a personality quiz, asking the player to answer honestly. Depending on your results, the game will suggest a Pokemon to you. However, if you do not like this Pokemon, you can freely choose whoever you want. The game features 2 vital characters to the story, you and your partner Pokemon, which led me to the hardest decision in the game. Eevee is my favorite and my go-to, and I always usually pick him. Bulbasaur is a precious cabbage boy, Cyndaquil is adorable, but I rarely ever go with the water starters, so I went with Mudkip. Picking a team combination adds some variety to your playthrough, and I love seeing what other players pick. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, at its core, is a dungeon crawler that incorporates the Pokemon mechanics, moves, and type abilities. Which, if you're unfamiliar with Pokemon type matchups, or the series in general, you are most likely going to have a difficult time. The gameplay goes on a turn-based style, so enemies won't move until you do. This can lead to strategic moments where you'll have to think critically on whether or not to attack, run away, or use an item. Each mystery dungeon contains randomized layouts with different items, making each revisit different every time. Each dungeon contains a certain number of floors, with the later dungeons having more floors to go through. The game will give you a tutorial on how the controls work, but I do think as a newcomer it can be a little overwhelming at first. Your HP is not the only thing you'll be looking out for though. As you explore dungeons, your Pokemon will start to get hungry and its belly will start to decrease. Once your belly reaches 0, you will start to receive damage. However, switching out and controlling another Pokemon will prevent you from losing HP. Eating items such as apples will fill your belly meter. In earlier dungeons, this won't pose as much of a threat to you, however it is essential for later game. As long as your belly isn't empty, walking around in the dungeon will gradually restore your HP. Pokemon attacks vary from their main series counterparts. Some can attack within 2-tile range, attack through walls, or attack the entire room. Status effects such as poison, burn, and paralysis do play a role, however upon entering the next floor they are removed, so in only dire situations can they cause you to faint in the dungeon. When you're progressing through a story mission, it's important that you and your partner Pokemon do not faint. In a regular mission, it's okay as long as one Pokemon is left remaining. If you run out of HP in a dungeon, you can be revived if you have any Reviver or Tiny Reviver seeds in your inventory. However, if you are defeated, you are left with 3 options. Accept defeat and lose all the items and money you have in your inventory, as well as any completed jobs are now considered failed. Go back in with a backup team and risk losing even more items and money to save your original team, or send out a Wonder Mail online for a friend or a random person to rescue you. The game can be quite punishing if you fail, so you gotta be careful. If you're going into this game thinking it'll be just as easy as the mainline series are, you got another thing coming. There will be instances where multiple enemies can gang up on you all at once, or you'll be limited on healing items, or you'll be hit with a multi-attack move, or an enemy can use a move like Magnitude, or a boss battle can wipe you out. Sometimes these can feel like cheap and unfair deaths. It's always best to prepare and bring a few reviver seeds and an escape orb with you whenever things get out of hand. Boss battles are one of my favorite parts about the game, and they can be quite challenging if you're running low on healing or status items. Some battles, such as Ground On, now have environmental hazards to look out for. This wasn't in the original. However, boss battles are mostly tied to story missions and post-game. When you enter a dungeon, you can select a party of 3 Pokemon that you can control. After the first few dungeons, you'll be able to recruit other Pokemon to help you out. You can have up to a team of 8. However, if they faint and you do not have any reviver seeds on you, they are gone forever. Also, if you do not have the Pokemon-specific camp, they won't join you after the dungeon is over and will give you money instead. Items come in a variety of types, such as held items, throwables, consumables, and seeds and orbs and wands with a variety of effects. As a rescue team, when you're not progressing through the story, your objective is to obtain side jobs and help other Pokemon out. The difficulty of these jobs depend on the dungeon that they take place in, with the later game ones providing more points on your rescue rank. The jobs themselves are honestly a little monotonous and tedious, which most of the time requires you to go to the floor, find the Pokemon, speak to said Pokemon, and congratulations, you're done. These can vary in escort missions to the lost Pokemon, bring them an item, or find their lost item. However, while as tedious as it might seem, I will say there is a sense of satisfaction of stacking 7 jobs at once at one go. When you complete each mission, you are prompted if you want to leave the dungeon early. If you are uncertain if you will survive the following floors, it is best to leave now and then collect your rewards. Your rescue team rank increases after you've received enough points. These will upgrade the amount of items you can carry in your bag, the amount of jobs you can take, the number of pre-saved teams that you can have, and will allow your camp capacity to hold more Pokemon that you recruit. And finally, when you're not in a dungeon, your hub area is Pokemon Square. This place contains a few facilities to help you prepare before you're off in dungeons. You can buy and sell goods at the Kecleon shop, deposit money in Persian's bank, link moves at Gulpin's shop. This lets you use 2 or more moves at one time with the expense of making you hungry a little faster. The Kangaskhan storage keeps your items that you don't want to lose. I highly recommend keeping as many reviver seeds as possible, as there will be parts of the game where you'll not be able to access the town. Wigglytuff's Camp Corner lets you buy camps to hold specific Pokemon. These camps can be purchased at any time and in any order, and you can visit these camps by going west of your character's house. The Makuhita Dojo lets you take 1 Pokemon in and go through a training session at the cost of a ticket. This is a great way to quickly grind if you're having trouble inside dungeons. And finally, the Pelipper office is where you can accept jobs as well as accept rescue jobs from friends and players online. I won't go into heavy spoiler territory with this video. Stories in the Mystery Dungeon series is honestly my favorite aspect and usually what keeps me playing to see what happens next. That being said, in my opinion, Rescue Team's plot is a little weak compared to Explorers of the Sky or Super Mystery Dungeon. I think Chunsoft really had a stronger emphasis on the plot in the later installments. That isn't to say this game lacks one, however. The story begins with you, a human that has been turned into a Pokemon, who suffers from amnesia. You are awakened by your partner and immediately off to help find a Butterfree's lost Caterpie. After the rescue, your partner forms a rescue team with you instantly. I remember this quick introduction and pacing felt off back at the originals, and that still exists in the remake. In the Pokemon world, there are earthquakes and natural disasters that occur, and there are Pokemon in danger, and it's up to you and your partner to help them. That's honestly the gist of what's going on for the first few hours of the game. Your Pokemon is uncertain as to why they're a Pokemon and what happened to them and who they were as a human. Throughout the story, your Pokemon will have vivid dreams of a voice telling them more about who they are. There's a lot more to the story than I'm letting on, but despite its simplicity, the plot is still fun and charming and cute. Unlike the later installments, there isn't a lot of character growth or development between the cast. Your partner Pokemon is pretty straightforward, optimistic, and wishes to make a rescue camp, and they only show a few signs of weaknesses and doubts. Alakazam, Gengar, and perhaps Caterpie are really the only other characters who have personalities and motives. Most of the other characters that appear in the story are more one note and done, and I think it's a bit of a problem with the story as things move pretty quickly and characters aren't fully fleshed out. The story isn't particularly too long, especially if you spend as little time in the dungeons as possible. Completing the story will grant you the ability to evolve your Pokemon, including your main 2 characters. Post-game still has some plot, however it doesn't focus around your characters anymore. I do miss the sprite work of the GBA and DS titles, however I love the art direction that Chunsoft went with this one. The watercolor visuals does pay homage to the official artwork of the original games. They also redid the original main menu artworks, but with added scarfs. One of the new little features that I like is the little speech bubbles that pop up above a Pokemon's head whenever they're about to do an attack or whenever they get attacked. It makes the interaction with the game just a little bit more fun and playful. The animations to the Pokemon are really quite pleasant to look at. There are a lot of expressiveness to a handful of the characters during the cutscenes. And then there's, well... Okay, so it's not perfect. There's a few minor nitpicks I have. Like Eevee's movement, for example. In the original Spriteworks, this shows them leaping when moving. Whereas in this, they do a little shuffle that doesn't look quite right with the movement speed. Again, this is just a minor thing. It doesn't really detract my enjoyment from the game whatsoever. The dynamic camera cuts in the cutscenes add so much more personality compared to the originals. There's really a lot of attention to detail and care to what we're seeing, and it shows. While I wish they would also enhance the dialogue a little bit, it's nice that Spike Chunsoft went the extra distance to update the cutscenes. Unlike a certain other company that I know, the music is also really nice. One of my favorite things when a video game gets remade is hearing a remastered of its soundtrack. However, this is another factor I feel Spike Chunsoft really improved in the later entries. I love the soundtrack to the series, however, Rescue Team didn't really have that many toe tappers, calming, or emotionally driven music. Oddly enough, the Oddity Cave, a bonus dungeon in the originals, had me in awe as the music was a mashup tracks from Gates to Infinity. Gates to Infinity was the black sheep of the Mystery Dungeon series, but the soundtrack was phenomenal. Many of the sound effects also make a return from past installments, and this is probably just a me thing, like a me-specific thing here, but I love the fact that this game uses sound effects from the WiiWare ones. I don't even know why, this isn't even a memorable game itself, but whenever I hear the stair sounds, it just makes me happy. Okay, so Red and Blue Rescue Team is a fine game and all, but it's definitely a testament to its time, and it's riddled with flaws. Thankfully, there are so many much needed quality of life improvements for this game. This isn't a one-to-one remake, as there are a lot of new modern mechanics and tweaks. There is a lot to cover, but here are some of the important ones. Whenever your teammate is low on health, you can now feed them directly. In the originals, you had to make sure that they are next to you so you could throw an Oran Berry at them. Your allies have much smarter AI, and they will go for items in the same room, use type advantage moves against opponents, and they will avoid stepping on traps. You're now able to push your allies. This is helpful for monster houses, so you don't have to open up a bunch of menus to change your teammates' tactics to move with you. Holding down ZL will give you a prompt to pick which move you want to use, and pressing A will automatically pick a move for you. In the originals, you can only set one move with LA, and pressing A will do a basic non-specific attack, meaning if you wanted to use a different move each time, you'd have to open up your menu, open up your attacks, and select that set attack. Pressing plus can change the Pokemon you control. This gives you 3 bellies to manage and makes apples a lot less of a priority than in the originals. In the original, you were forced to play only as your Pokemon until the post-game, and if you or your partner fainted in any dungeon, story or not, it is considered a loss. Modern Pokemon mechanics, such as Fairy types and Gen 7 moves are included, as well as evolutions to Pokemon that previously weren't in the originals. Mega Evolutions also make a return, which is kind of funny because I feel like Game Freak just wants to forget it was ever a thing. Wands from Super Mystery Dungeon make a return, and so do Tiny Reviver Seeds. In the originals, finding Reviver Seeds was very rare and it was essential to have in an emergency. Tiny Reviver Seeds are a lot more common to find, but it doesn't mean you won't die in the game. In the originals, you can have a team of 4. This is reduced to 3. However, you're able to recruit 5 additional Pokemon in dungeons, making your party double the size. IQs were originally abilities that your Pokemon could learn from eating gummies. Gummies used to come one for each type. However, this has been simplified to Rainbow Gummies and DX Gummies. These will give your Pokemon rare qualities, which can vary from making it easier for you to recruit Pokemon, healing you faster in hallways, receiving stat boosts, and the list goes on. Your storage at the Kangaskhan hut is now limitless. This used to have a capacity and would grow by increasing your rescue rate. You also now get a bigger bag much earlier on in the game. The Makuhita Dojo is revamped completely, sending one Pokemon in with a time limit instead of a normal dungeon. Prior to the post-game, items are now always displayed on the minimap. I kinda hate this new change personally. This causes me to run into said room, pick up item, and get out, taking the element of surprise behind each room out. It also kills the dread of an unsuspecting monster house, as you can tell just by looking at the map where they would occur. You can now accept way more jobs than the original, being able to tackle 7 at one go. You're able to recruit fully evolved Pokemon more easily, and the Pokemon you don't use will still level up in their camps. There are also strong foe Pokemon that are stronger than the rest and a chance of being shiny. There are more rescue ranks added to this version. Diglett also adds a tunnel from your base to the developer office to make traveling a lot quicker. As well as making preset teams, setting up your team is much faster and streamlined than the originals, having to go from the friend camp, talk to the Pokemon you want, and having to do it each time. And finally, you now have the option to choose your Pokemon at the beginning. In the originals, you had to restart your game in order to get somebody else. I think Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX is a great return to the spin-off series after its 5-year absence, and a fantastic remake over the original. That being said, I don't think the game is perfect, and it isn't a game for everyone. If you've never played a Pokemon game before, I couldn't imagine you'd have an easy time through this. The biggest caveat is that the gameplay itself never changes much, and it can feel redundant. If you're not having fun within the first few hours of the game, and you aren't hooked by the story, I don't think this game or any Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game is for you. If brutal punishments isn't your thing, I'd also advise against it. There are a few things that I wish were different, such as some characters like Absol having a much more vital role and dialogue. This is more of a criticism to the original games as well, but I wish they had taken more liberties with the remake and make him more integral to the plot, especially with the camera shots and hyping him up. It's just a missed opportunity. Gameplay wise though, I think this is the best Mystery Dungeon has ever been. All the essentials are here and the gameplay is more streamlined. However, I wish there was more job variety, such as taking out outlaws with the remake. I do think newcomers will have a hard time at first, but I do think the game teaches you most of what you need to know, making this the most accessible Mystery Dungeon to date. I wouldn't say that this is my favorite entry, but it's definitely a solid title and I'm happy this game exists. Plus, being able to play Mystery Dungeon on the big screen was something I've always wanted during the Wii U heydays, and now it's finally here. I really enjoyed my time with this game, and I would be over to the moon and back if Spike Chunsoft makes an Explorers DX sometime in the future. If you haven't played a Mystery Dungeon game before, Rescue Team DX has a demo available in the eShop, and I encourage you to go check it out. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this has been a fun video for you. I put a lot of time into it. If you enjoyed it, consider liking the video and subscribing to see more content like this in the future. Comment down below what your rescue teams are and any feedback you have about the game or my video. Till next time, have a great day everybody.